Welcome to Cats and Rats Podcast, covering your Florida Panthers.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Cats and Rats Podcast, episode number 44. I've been waiting to say that for a while because my guy Eric Goodbranson, former Florida Panther, maybe one day will finish out as a Florida Panther. But we're here today, guys.
Draft bust.
I'm here with my co-host Cody Stevens and Nick Levine. I'm your host Kirby Lupul. We do have a special guest here today. We're going to kind of get into the Atlantic Division, and at the top of the Atlantic Division, and our guest today, he's quite happy right now because his team resides at the top of the Atlantic Division. Resident Cats and Rats community member, but he's one of the good Leaf ones. Leaf fan, Ryburn Regular. How's it going, Ryburn?
Good. Happy to be here, Kirby, Cody, Nick.
Nice to have you on board here with us again. I know we had you by with Maddie from the Bruins Bender when we were looking back at the Atlantic Division prior to the beginning of the season. I think it was this season, if I'm not mistaken. But we're going to get into a lot of stuff here. First, gentlemen, I did tweet something out a few days ago on the Atlantic Division and kind of my thoughts there on it, on Tampa, on Toronto, a little bit on Ottawa, and then, of course, on ourselves as well. You guys can kind of push back on my takes here. We'll read over it here. If you guys want me to read over it for our audio audience,
I have it right here.
You got there? Okay, cool.
Yep. This is from @KJ_loops. Don't know who the hell that guy is. He says, and I quote, general takeaways on the Atlantic Division right now, in my opinion, my in capital letters. Number one, this is a different Tampa Bay team than last year. Two, if there are teams are going to destroy Toronto, one has to admit Solars ain't for real, and Ruby and Decor is. Third, Ottawa will be super tough versus anyone in the first round, especially early. 4, Montreal no longer bottom tier team in Eastern Conference. They are a bit ahead of schedule if they get into playoffs, though. 5, Florida is banged up and should be better in the playoffs, should with the asterisks on it, but realistic projections cannot be made on all players who are in the lineup now and how they will perform.
So whoever wants to take that, run with it there. Just kind of those general scopes.
Well, I agree with you on Tampa Bay. I've been watching a lot of Tampa Bay Lightning hockey this year. I've gone to a number of games this year. The move for Gord and Bjorkstrand really, and they're starting to play a lot better now down the stretch here. I know the depth isn't what it used to be, but it's like you take a look at the Tampa Bay Lightning and the top-end talent they got. That team and the depth is definitely good enough to go on a run. Whereas last year, Kirby, we played them in the first round. There were guys like Crozier and Lilleberg and Tanner Janot and Mikey Asimont in there.
You didn't say him.
Dumba there, right? There aren't guys like those guys. Sergachev was hurt, right? You take a look now, and I know they got a lot of flack for their offseason moves, moving Sergachev and bringing in McDonough and letting Stamkos walk and bringing in Gensel. I think we talked with Rod Peterson at the beginning of the year, and I think he said, what, Kirby?
They would miss the playoffs.
They would miss the playoffs.
And me and Cody said, we're not going that far.
Nah, not that far.
And I'll say this. I think the move for Mosier and bringing in McDonough really helped kind of balance out that top four a bit. Hedman's had a bounce-back year. He had a couple rough year on the defensive side. I think Mosier's come in and really played a nice role there. McDonough and Chernak.
Mosier missed some time, too.
Mosier missed some time, but Chernak and McDonough really balance out each other well. I honestly think Chernak's nothing without McDonough, and he's proven that. And then you have a guy like Radish, who coincidentally is quarterbacking their power play instead of Victor Hedman, and a guy, Nick Perbix there. They've also gone 11-7 a number of times this year. But you take a look at that top 9, right? There is that 9th forward spot that is a little bit of a question. And like, let's say if Nick Paul and Yanni Gord and maybe Oliver Bjorkstrand, they're not providing the depth scoring, it kind of can become a 1 or 2 line team. And then the story of the year is Andrei Vasilevsky is returned to his form, right? If it wasn't for Connor Hellebuck, he'd probably win the Vezina, Andrei Vasilevsky. So really interesting things happening for Tampa. And I'll just say that because I've watched them a ton this year. They look really good. And they've struggled a bit of late. They haven't looked as good. But if we're going to say the Panthers are coasting or doing whatever, then we got to say the same thing for the Tampa Bay Lightning, right?
Ryburn, jump in there. Tampa Bay Lightning.
Disagree.
You disagree? We'll wait for Cody's takes on that. Ryburn, jump in on Tampa Bay and kind of what you're seeing. And, of course, how they're going to match up a little bit with Florida and Toronto as well. We just don't want to do a season in review here. We want to kind of look ahead to these matchups here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tampa, you guys are right. They've probably outperformed most of the expectations that people had for them coming into the season. Lots of people questioning the moves they made in the offseason. Most of them look pretty good right now. I think if you look at some of Tampa's numbers, they're third in I guess you guys are third. They're second in the Atlantic right now. Their goal differential is really, really good. So that suggests, I know they've had a couple really lopsided games, but overall that suggests that they're scoring a lot of goals and they're doing a pretty good job of keeping pucks out of the net as well. Like you said, Vasilevsky's back looking like himself. So that's always dangerous. Like, we know what that guy can do in the playoffs, right? Like, that's a goalie that can single-handedly win you games and multiple games down a deep playoff stretch. So definitely a dangerous team. I think they're probably a 3-line team. Like, I think some of the depth they have with Gord and Paul, like, those are two guys that that I would certainly like to have on my team for a deep playoff run, right? Like, just the style and the intensity that they bring to complement some of the higher end talent like Kucherov and Gensel. I think any team should be scared really to play Tampa. Maybe not the Cats as much, just because they didn't give you a ton of trouble last year, but I think they look different this year than they did last year. So I wouldn't base a prediction too much on that. When you're a Leafs fan, unfortunately, Tampa, Florida, we don't have to worry about Boston this year, but like, all these teams are just a complete house of horrors for us. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't be too pumped playing Tampa in the first round.
You guys did get the upper hand on Tampa the one playoff year. But again, Cody, I think Panther fans are looking at Tampa a little bit differently this year than they did last year as well. And I know I have the numbers there, Nick and Cody, on Vasilevsky, if you do want to put that up there in March. I think you got player of the month.
Let me get through my thing on Tampa, because I'm going to get this on record right now. Their top 6 scoring has been a lot better. Like, Hagel's popped off this year. I think he's like at more than a point per game. Cirelli had a hot start. And Kucherov. Gensel's fit in seamlessly. That wasn't the move that met, like, the Gensel move always made sense to me, because Stamkos falling off as a 5v5 player, and you didn't want to pay him what he was going to command, especially when you're still in a cup window.
I told you the Gensel move was going to be a move to make here, Cody. And I remember early on, you were like, I don't know. I thought maybe they would struggle on the power play. I don't even think that happened. And I said, look at Gensel and how many goals he scores to start games. People talk about game-winning goals. It's also important how you start games. And I think Gensel right away at the beginning of the year would get an early goal for the team and get them going. And that's where you get faith when you're a new player. All your teammates around you now have faith in you and what you're going to be able to add into this team. And also on Hagel's front, Cody, you mentioned him. He has no
power play
goals this year. All are even strength or shorthanded.
But the thing is like, I don't think Tampa's much different. If they lose, it's going to be to the same vices that they've lost to the last 2 years. Not good enough 5v5. And once again, like, they struggled against us 5v5. When it was 2-1 games, they've struggled against the Panthers at least. Toronto's beaten them twice already. I think it was like 5-3 games. And the thing is with Tampa, and like, I'm not to say this again until I'm blue in the face, I don't care the D-core is still not that great. They have the 3rd best D-core in the top 3 in the Atlantic Division when all healthy. Toronto is better and ours is better. Because the move that I still never made sense to me was the Sergachev one. That never made sense. You could, like, any life could tell me, like, oh, like, we brought back McDonough and Sergachev. I would have never brought back McDonough if I had to lose Sergachev. Never in my wildest dreams would I have done that. Mm-hmm. And with Tampa, it's like, it's just, I can't see, like, they're better in the top 6 because Gensel's there, but different. I don't like Vasilevsky's different. That's the only one, like, because he's gotten better the last 2 years. Remember the last 2 playoffs? Heck, against the Leafs, he was horrible. Like, Leafs kind of found a vice in him, which were shots from the point. Morgan Riley had a hell of a series. The
Leafs have figured out Vasi more than any team has.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, the Leafs, because I think Leafs just figured
outside
out,
of Colorado out west.
I mean, I don't know if you could ever say you figured out Vasi, right? Because it's like the guy.
It might have been that year because he was due for.
Well, remember they were also.
But they did. They figured it out.
He was dealing with the back injury, and that was they had just come off 3 straight appearances to the Cup final, right? A lot of fatigue there. And I
But
think
that's good. That's good
But-
to put in
but
Leafs
then
back. A
then
lot of those same players.
no, I give credit to the Leafs, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think we could, and I don't think you are, Kirby. I don't think you could discount Andre Vasilevsky because I still think he could just turn it up. And if he says, I'm not allowing a goal this game or this series, I'm not going to allow a goal. And that's
I don't know if
going
we're
to
going
be.
to see Bassey from 4 or 5 years ago, but I think he can turn it up.
Yeah,
Oh, I think he can.
like the thing is,
I think he could play better than Igor did.
I don't know anyone can say with 100% certainty that Bob and Bassey are going to do what they've done in past years.
No,
I
you
think
can't
there's
say
a track record there.
you can't say it with certainty, but it's always in the back of their mind that they can do it.
Yeah, they're getting older. They do have mileage on them and things like that. But you do have the track record of saying versus the other goalies in the division, which we'll get to. Yeah, there's the capability of them doing it. But I'm just not going to say with 100% certain. You know, I always defend Bob on every post game. And I've spoken highly of Vassy with Cody for now 3-4 years in our post-game show. So, again, those goalies are there. But, yeah, so Tampa kind of close on them, guys. Anything else?
Yeah. And it's funny. You mentioned those Tampa-Toronto series. I always say the team that was worse in those series won because our President's Trophy year, Toronto outplayed them in that 7-game series. But Vassy went otherworld, and Toronto couldn't do nothing to stop it. Like, I'll always pound the table saying Toronto was a better team that series. The year after,
because the roles kind of reversed the next year with the year we beat them. Like, you could argue Tampa outplayed us, and it was Vasilevsky.
I remember Game 4. You know, when Panthers beat the Capitals, Kirby would often talk about Garnet Hathaway's empty net post. That was that close away from being a 3-1 series. Toronto came back from a 4-1 deficit in Game 4. I believe, and did they not?
Yeah, and I think, and they're all the last two, the game winner and the tying goal were all from shots from the blue line, except the game winner was a Kerfoot tip out in front.
Yeah,
but Morgan Riley tied it from a shot from the point right off a faceoff, and like I just remember because people forget about this in the first series, Toronto actually had the lead in Game 6. Tavares scored dying seconds of the second. And like in Tampa, I think Tampa tied it on a 5-on-3 power play, and then Brandon Point in overtime. That's what saved them that series. Toronto should have won that series, and I'll pound the table for that. But I mean, Tampa, like I said, Tampa is different because Vasilevsky's better in the Gensel edition, but that back end is susceptible to speed. And that bottom pair is still horrible. Nick mentioned Lilleberg. He's still on the back end. He's still playing.
And what Cody's saying,
I think he's the seventh.
Cody's really talking their floor, but I think you got to look the other way too. They're ceiling Stanley Cup winners. So yeah, they could get bounced in the first round with the kind of deficiencies in their game and the roster, like Cody's talking about. But I think just as easily the other way, they can go on a Stanley Cup run.
But if they win a Stanley Cup, Andre Vasilevsky has to be their best player.
Well, and their star players return to form. Kucherov. And
if Andre Vasilevsky's...
And a lot of that was credit to the Panthers, but when you look at Kucherov, he was awful.
I'll just say this. If in any shape or form, if Sergei Bobrovsky, and I know I might be stating the obvious here, is at all better than Andre Vasilevsky in this series, Panthers are winning it. If Andre Vasilevsky's average, even just above average, Panthers are winning it.
Yeah, but I'm not blaming Bob, Nick, if Kucherov and Point go off. You have to give them credit too because they're all world players.
Yeah.
Right. And then you take a look at what the Panthers dealt with last year when it comes to goalies and Vasilevsky, Swayman, Igor.
Yeah, like each time we played one, we were placing the quote unquote best goalie in the playoffs currently. Because we went Vasilevsky round 1, doused him in 5. Swayman round 2, 6. And Shesterkin, same thing, in 6. And what's funny was we faced a worse goalie, and that one took us to 7. And that's the difference right there. And we're like, I could segue into Toronto.
Yeah, I want to get to Toronto.
Toronto's weakness compared to
hold on, Cody. I want to go to Ryburn first and pick apart what I've been saying here on Stolars. I'm not a believer in him, but I am a believer in Craig Berube and their defense. So. Ryburn, am I looking at this the right way? I know Cody, he's going to focus on the core 4 here and get into that. But let's talk about the goaltending and defense. Am I right to kind of question what's between the pipes? And I'm a Wall guy, but I'm not a Stolars guy. but I do like what Berube's doing with that defense. So am I spot on here from an outsider perspective, or you set me straight here in what I'm thinking on the Leafs? Ryburn, go ahead first.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty spot on around just Berube and the defense. I think they've shown, especially in like the last 10 games, their commitment to playing his system, which is always defense first, and moving the puck out of the zone a lot quicker, right? Like not spending any time in their own end messing around. That's why they brought in guys like Tanev and OEL to help with that, and they've done exactly that. They've helped, right? It's like night and day compared to last year with Keefe. So yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on the defense. Chris Tanev is definitely probably, I would say he's the most important guy on the back end. Like
shot blocking and clearing out the front of the net.
Yeah, like just set the Leafs single season record last night against Columbus for most shots blocked in a season, right? So he's definitely leading the charge when it comes to that Berube system. So yeah, no, I think you're spot on there. I think I'm kind of with you on the goaltending. Like I was always a Wall guy, but he's getting kind of harder and harder to I don't want to use the word defend, but like I think Stolarz has outperformed him in the last stretch here. So I can definitely see why they seem to be leaning more toward giving him the starts. Like he just got consecutive starts, I think, for the first time this year. And most fans, most insiders too, listening to them, seem to think that he's probably going to take control of the crease in April here. So we'll see what happens. Would it shock me if Stolarz, though, had a bad game down the stretch, or a couple of bad games down the stretch, or even, went into the playoffs and didn't do what he needs to get a win? Wouldn't shock me at all. And then in which case, I think they go back to Wall. One of the things you have to remember about Wall is every playoff game he's been in, essentially, he's been good. What's limited him has been injuries, right? Like getting hurt in that Boston series last year. If he stays healthy, if he doesn't hurt himself in the dying seconds of that game, I think we probably win, right? We don't go to Samsonov and we ride Wall through that series, and I think we beat Boston. Who knows what happens after that? But I just think that health has been his kind of kryptonite, and if he can stay healthy, I think he's certainly going to push Stolarz for starts even into the playoffs. Like we could see like the Ullmark Swayman thing that we saw last year with those two. That wouldn't shock me at all. So, but no, I totally understand why people are a little bit shaky on Stolarz. One thing I've noticed too is Toronto seems to play better like in front of Stolarz, and I don't know if that's purposeful. Sometimes I wonder if it's not like a subconscious, not choice, but like a subconscious thing that they're doing because they know that Stolarz maybe isn't making quite like the 10 bell game breaking pure athleticism type saves that Wall can make, right? Like Stolarz is more of a positional guy, taking up space in the net. He gets a little deep in his net sometimes. He gives up rebounds a lot, and the Leafs do a really, really good job of taking care of that stuff in front of him. And I've just noticed this year that they don't seem to play as well in front of Wall for some reason. So yeah, it's definitely interesting and a bit of a question mark going into the playoffs, I would say. And that's doesn't matter who we play, right? Like whether we're going up against Bob, Vasilevsky, doesn't matter. Like one of those two has to be as good to win, I think. So
yeah, and I think Wall has that potential. The thing with Stolarz is I think he'll be good for like a game 1 and game 2, but once game 3 and 4 happen, that's when I start to question, because he's never really been a regular starter in this league.
Nope.
And never had that workload. And when in the playoffs, tandems
every other night.
I don't believe tandems work at all, because remember, because I have a couple of examples. Minnesota 2 years ago, they tried that tandem with Gustafsson, Fleury. Gustafsson, a phenomenal game 1 versus Dallas.
Then they sat him.
And then they sit in the crazy thing is it just went to 1 overtime.
Dean Evison never started Gustafsson, by the way. That was always my gripe with Evison. And to piggyback on your point, Cody, about the tandems, Ullmark Swayman, another one. You take a look around the league, and you take a look at the distribution of starts, like with Thompson and Lindgren, Ryburn. I don't think Stolarz is going to hit 35 starts this year, is he? Or 40?
I don't know. No, he's certainly not going to hit 40. I don't think he's going to hit 35.
He's at career high now.
Is he? Okay.
Is he at 40?
Let me look.
That's high for starts now.
Let me look here. I know he was going to hit 40 because remember he had that.
I just want to add the thing on Washington too. When they won the Cup, I believe Grubauer started the first 2 games, and they were going to maybe go tandem or work Holtby back in. And then they lose the games, and Holtby comes right back in. And then Holtby, he has been a starting goalie, and he has that pedigree, and he takes Washington all the way to their first Stanley Cup. The Leafs don't have that with the situation. With
Stolarz is at 31 games played, 30 games started, so he will not get to 40 games played.
No,
He might not even get to 35.
Yeah, but it's still
Probably not.
Yeah, but the thing is like, you remember he had that floating body thing with his knee back in December.
That's right.
That kind of hurt that. He probably would have been right at 50-50 with Wall if he was healthy the entire year. But another one is like Carolina did the same thing versus us, but that one made more sense because remember that was right after that 4 OT game. They went to Ronta game 2. And
goaltending wasn't their issue either.
Oh yeah. It's currently what our issue is currently. But
so are you with Nick? Are you with Cody there on Stolarz? He's going to be looking at him on games 3, 4. I'm looking at him right out of the gate.
I'm looking at him. I agree with you. I think right out of the gate he can struggle. I think, and I agree with
expectations, big market.
If you take a look at Joseph Wall in the games he has played, he's never really gotten that runway to keep going and going, like in the playoffs here.
I just have confidence Wall in net with his technique and fundamentals, and I think his heart rate too. I think nothing really rattles him.
And you can see that like when he's talking to the media, like he. And
as much as I love Stolarz, I just think in terms of pure talent, I mean, Joseph Wall, Anthony Stolarz, it's not even close.
People might think this is a wild take, Cody, but I put Wall with some type of pedigree that Knight and Wolf have. Like that's.
I don't know about all that.
In him in that tier.
I don't know about all that. No.
Okay.
He comes from that U.S. National Development Team system, and the year that he played, he was, I think, second up to Jake Ottinger. So it's like if he's a year older or a year younger and doesn't have a goalie like Ottinger that he's playing behind, I think he's probably he's potentially a first round draft pick.
Yeah. And the thing is with Knight is like Knight's played like on the highest levels, and why I was so high on him was when the lights got brighter, he played better. Like go back World Junior shutout, NCAA tournament had phenomenal numbers there.
But Knight did it in 1 playoff game. We'll say 2. But Wall, he's shown me that too, Cody, at the highest stage and the highest levels.
Yeah.
Against Florida, against Boston. And speaking of the goaltending team, I know they went between Samsonov and Wool. With the Boston series last year, didn't Swayman start game 1 and Ullmark start game 2 before they just stuck with Swayman the rest of the way?
I think so.
And I think that's the game the Leafs won, right? Game 2, right? Did you guys win game 2 last year?
I think it was game 2. No, we didn't win game 1.
Okay.
It had to be game 2 because you guys lost 3 and 4.
Okay.
Because because the one vice that Toronto's had, I don't get it for the life of me. And I said it on Spaces like a couple nights ago. After we played them, they have been by far the worst playoff home team the last 2 years. They have 2 wins at home.
I can tell you all about that.
Like, can you explain?
Because they don't let actual fans into their building. That's why they have the worst playoff.
That's why you guys play Ottawa. You have a lot of fans in Ottawa, and it'll become a Road Warrior series, like I've talked about.
All those people that they show on, I don't know if you get it down in Florida, but in Maple Leaf Square during the games, they should let those people into the building, and then maybe we'll see what happens.
Yeah, because their only 2 wins have been game 2 versus Tampa and game 6 versus Boston. Those are their only 2 home wins in the last 3 playoff series they played.
Now, a little bit of a critical eye here, shifting away from the defense and the goaltending that we're giving a bit of a critical eye to. Let's talk about the core 4 here. Cody and Nick, I have some numbers there if you do want to put it up on the YouTube side. We talk about the core 4 often with the Leafs. Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, and John Tavares. John Tavares has often gotten linked with the core 4. Right now, he is one of, if not the hottest player in the NHL. John Tavares is on fire right now.
Let me rephrase this here. Because as you can see, for those on the audio, most multi-goal games this season as of March 29th. First place, William Nylander at 9. The second place, tied for first, also Leon Draisaitl with 9 as well. John Tavares tied for third with 7 with Kyle Connor and Jake Gensel. And I don't have, and here's the thing: it's not the core 4 that we should have an eye on. It's the franchise 2 that we need to have an eye on.
Yes, I've always said a lot of
the way that Tavares is playing, guys.
Yes, there's been a lot of talk about okay, they need grit, they need this, they need that. Sam Bennett, a lot of other players. I'm like, oh, that's great, but at the end of the day, and Ryburn, I know you push back a little bit on that when it comes to the Matthews Sam Bennett thing. You need some grit to kind of defend your captain a bit. But I do think at the end of the day, you could have all the grit, you could have the defensive structure, you could even have the goaltending. If your stars don't show up, it's not going to matter.
Okay, so what if Tavares is A+ and Nylander's A+?
Yeah, that's
good. You're going to have a chance. But if Matthews and Marner's don't perform, it's going to be really tough. And Nylander and Morgan Riley were really good in that Florida-Toronto series 2 years ago. Yeah. William Nylander, people say playoff performance. Nylander's not the problem when it comes to playoff performance.
Neither is Tavares.
And neither is Tavares, really.
You could
and
go
neither
back.
Is Morgan Riley. I don't think. The problem is Austin Matthews, and to a much bigger extent, Mitch Marner. I mean, I watched some of those.
I would say this year Austin Matthews will, because of the mystery injury, illness last year, and what he's dealing with the back thing going to Germany.
And I said this about the Leafs. I'm like, some of those games I watched were some of the most lethargic games I've ever seen, and it was because of Mitch Marner. I remember Mitch Marner had a beautiful goal, I think in Game 4 against the Bruins, where he kind of took it behind his back and he was able to get it past Swayman. You think that would have lit a fire under his ass or something, and under the crowd's ass. This was right after I think Austin Matthews left the game. Nothing.
You know, it's funny. I think they were down 5-0 or 4.
No, they were down 3-1 after he scored that goal. It's like that should get the crowd going. That should get Mitch Marner going. Next shift is just going into the corner. Nothing. I don't know what you can do to get it through to Mitch Marner. And I don't think Austin Matthews is the problem. I think Mitch Marner, you go into a corner with him, he's not winning the board battle.
So I want to go to Ryburn here. I get on Mitch Marner a lot. I'll save it for right now. I want kind of Ryburn to defend core 4 here. But again, John Tavares, I think the most goals since coming out of 4 Nations. But Mitch Marner just came out recently in an interview in Toronto and said to a reporter, and the reporter got a feeling from that he's leaning away from Toronto. But that's never a bad thing. I've talked to you about this, Ryburn. When you're on a contract year, you see how Tavares is playing. You see how Mitch Marner's playing. You see with the Panthers how Bennett, and before the suspension, Ekblad was playing. So contract years, they play into this factor as well. So is this a time where Mitch Marner is going to turn up? I know you liked his play in 4 Nations. You can look at the championship gold medal game. Yeah, the proof is in the pudding a little bit there on the 2 key plays in that tournament.
It hurts you to say that, Kirby.
I
can see it in your eyes. It hurts you to say that.
I know it does hurt me to say that a little bit because I think Matthews had probably the better tournament than Marner, but Marner had the better ending and was the winner at the end, right, of the day. So, and again, on the play was on with Matthews there, from the corner there. So that was interesting as well. So Matthews has that playing against him, and then Marner has that going for him. But again, what do you think of this core 4 moving forward? Because I think it does start and stop with them if you're going to advance here, Ryburn.
Yeah, I think you're right. It starts and stops with them. I'm with Cody Nick on Tavares, Nylander. Not really the problem. They've done fine in playoffs, in my opinion. I think Matthews, you don't ever want to use injuries as an excuse, but I mean, when he's been healthy, he's been a point per game player in the playoffs. He's been playing. He plays the toughest minutes. He goes head to head typically with the opposition's top line night in, night out. He's done it this year. Again, right? He's a great 2-way player. Most people seem to think there's something wrong with his back. I think it's his back as well. You can tell that something is off just the way he's moving. And he's battled through that. So we'll see, I guess, how he looks when it matters most here in April. But
and because the physical factor ramps up too.
That's what I mean. We'll see how he looks, right? We'll see if that hinders him or.
Yeah, I will give credit to Austin Matthews. I think, I've been watching some of the games. He looks and I know the back injury we're going to see. I think he looks really good. I think he has changed his game. And you do have to give him credit when, you take a look at the points. People say he's having a down year. The guy is over a point per game And you could argue, if it wasn't for Alexander Barkov, this guy would probably be up for the Selke year in and year out.
Yeah, but
I think he's getting nominated this
But-
year.
And I think he's getting nominated this year. I agree.
unfortunately, when you score 69 goals the year prior, it's going anywhere but down.
You set the bar pretty high doing that.
Yeah.
But I heard something on a broadcast a couple days ago that he had, I think, coming out of the four, I don't know if it was coming out of the Four Nations, but he's got like the most assists, I think, in the month. Since they came out of the Four Nations, I think in March, he's got the most assists. So it's like, I think he shows like that he can do different things, right? He's not just a goal scorer. We've talked about how he's probably a consistent Selke candidate. He'll probably get nominated again this year. And now he's doing other things, right? He's setting other guys up. So I think even if he is hurt, most nights he's still probably the best player on the ice. And that's going against anybody. I would put him against pretty much anybody in the NHL, with the exception of maybe like a Nathan McKinnon or Sidney Crosby. Right, is still really good. Barkov's a really good, strong two-way player, and then of course you've got McDavid and Draisaitl. But right, Matthews is right up there in that tier. So he's important, and I think as long as he can find a way to either be healthy or at least manage whatever he's going through right now, I think he'll be fine. And I'm going to stick with Mitch Marner for one more year. I know people have difficulty defending him at this point, right? Like he's had a ton of opportunity. I want to see what he looks like this year, just based off of how I've seen him change his game this year under Berube's system. I think he plays with a great deal more intensity than maybe what we were used to with Keefe. And also just coming out of the Four Nations tournament, showing up in big moments. Like I think that's an important experience for him. And yeah, like we'll see how he looks in a few weeks here. But I'm going to stick with him for one more year. I think if Berube can't kind of solve some of the problems that people have with him when it comes to the playoff intensity, then yeah. Maybe it's time to move on.
I just want to jump in quickly there, Cody. Austin Matthews has recorded a point almost in every game other than a handful, 3 or 4 games since the Four Nations, and even going back to February 1st. And then John Tavares, 15-plus goals right now. I think that leads since the Four Nations break. So
Panther killer.
Yes, huge numbers there. Panthers might not have to face them there in the first round. I do, after a break here soon, Cody, I want to get into like what the matchups look like. Who do we want to face as Panther fans? Ryburn, who would you want to look at as a Toronto fan, like how this is going to play out? Because it's turning into an Atlantic Division pod here.
Yeah, but before we move on, Nick, I think we gotta hear from got to read off some from our sponsor.
Yes, shout out to our sponsor, Bexels FLA. Hey, Panther fans in South Florida need real estate help? Check out Jeremy Beckham with Next Home Treasure Coast. It's boutique service with a personal touch. Jeremy and his team put humans over houses, working hard for you whether you're buying or selling. Ready to move? Hit up BexelsFLA.com or call 772-475-5371. You'll be glad you did. And now a word from our sponsor, CanesWear.
Panthers fever is here. Are you geared up? CanesWear in Davie is the place for all your Florida Panthers needs. They have the latest gear for our favorite NHL team. Jerseys, polos, t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. CanesWear has you covered. Stop by their store in Davie or at PanthersWear.com. Again, that's PanthersWear, WEAR.com for all your Panthers gear.
So, gentlemen, we kind of focused on the Leafs and Lightning, as we said, off of the top here. We might have to get into a couple of the other teams in Atlantic briefly when we go over kind of these matchups, if that's kind of where we're going towards here. I think every team, like Ryburn said, I don't know if Panther fans are fearful or don't want to match up with someone. I've seen, from what I've seen online, you know, people talk to in our community, they don't want to play Tampa. I think last year was probably the time that we wanted to play them the most. If we wanted to get to a Stanley Cup, some fans, and I wasn't with them, but they ended up to be right, Cody and Nick. They said, if we're to win a cup, we have to go through Tampa, and that's what happened.
I was a part of that
I didn't
crowd.
think we were going to play them. I thought we were going to play the Leafs, right?
I was a part of that crowd.
We thought we were going to play the
Yeah,
Leafs.
because-
It was
but we didn't
the
think-
last week of the regular season, right?
Yeah, but then Boston punted, and then
Yeah, you're
gave
part
us
of it with
division.
me, right? That I didn't think we were going to go through them.
I didn't think we would play. I thought we were going to play Toronto, but I wouldn't have minded playing Tampa.
Because I didn't know if they were ready for an extended trip. I thought that's the time they could trip up, right? Because man, they went on some
this year. If I were to pick a team to play, like of any,
Can I just jump in?
This is why I propose this to you guys.
Okay. I agree with Kirby when he says, I think you said this on Spaces after the Ottawa game, that the bottom, these wildcard teams are not Washington and they're not the Islanders. They're not like barely making it in. Like, these are good teams, and the way they play, they could be interesting matchups for some of the teams at the top of the division.
And they cause problems to teams within the division. Who are they going to play?
And I could see
a team like Washington
a lot more parity. Like, I'm not trying to shit on the Maple Leafs. I think Ottawa could beat Toronto. I think Ottawa could give Florida some trouble. I think to a lesser extent Tampa and Florida. But I do think that you take a look at like Ottawa. I mean, I know
I think they give all three teams in the Atlantic Division trouble.
But the only thing holding me back with Ottawa is Ullmark.
Oh.
Really?
Ullmark's playoff numbers have been horrible.
Yeah, but then you
got hurt that one year, though.
I know.
He's in the East either.
I know, but he has had 3 runs, 867 save percentage.
Yeah.
So I feel you can only talk about Ullmark if you're talking Bob or Vasi. Anyone else? I'm almost going to lean Ullmark.
I don't know. I'd go Wall before I go Ullmark.
Well, that's fine if the Leafs are starting Wall.
And I think another aspect of this is like Travis Green. You take a look. He had some. I know. I was a huge fan.
Pushback there. I'm like,
but when he was with Vancouver, right? I mean, he did a really good job in that Vegas series, managing his players and kind of like I think he did a really underrated coaching job in that playoff bubble.
Yeah, the underrated part of the coaching job was after them going net. But
no, I hold on. With Ottawa, I want to throw that to Ryburn. Ryburn, have you noticed defensive back checking from the Senators? Because like that was the missing piece with that team. They played like a bunch of individuals, and they didn't come together as a team because they gave up easy ice and they didn't defend and play that 200-foot game. And I think I've seen change in Ottawa. Maybe you don't want to give Ottawa credit with the whole Battle of Ontario thing, but they have individuals, and they're dangerous individuals out there. But now they're playing more together, like collectively, like a team.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it for sure. I think Ottawa's got a lot of players that work really hard. So like who comes to mind for me, like a guy like Ridley Gregg, David Perron, like they've got guys that have what I would say like high compete levels, high motors, right? Like they're running at sort of the high RPMs for the full 60 minutes. I think that helps them a lot. But something I don't think they get enough credit for is just like they've got some top tier talent there now. Like Brady Tkachuk is a top winger. Tim Stützle is a very, very good offensive player. Jake Sanderson, I think, is playing his way into like the absolute like top tier, sort of elite
top
category.
20 defenseman, right?
I know this is
Easily.
high praise.
Like,
I know this is high praise, but the Ottawa media is like the little shades of Scott Niedermayer.
Yeah,
I don't know about all that.
That's what they're saying. Just his skating.
I can see why they're
I can
like,
see
making
why.
that comparison. I can see why.
But Scott Niedermayer.
Hey, Scott Niedermayer had to start somewhere. And when he came into the league, it wasn't Scott Niedermayer and the Devils. It was Martin Brodeur, and then for a bit there, Scott Stevens. How he changed the culture of that team, like that was the culture changer when they got him over from St. Louis or wherever they brought him in. So again, I don't know, Cody.
Ottawa made one of the better moves of the deadline, in my opinion, bringing in Dylan Cousins for Josh Norris, kind of struggling center for struggling center.
And I think Cousins can be a gamer in the playoffs.
I don't know. We'll see. He's a little soft to me, but.
Shane Pinto.
That's a playoff guy right there.
Yeah, Cousins, like you said, like Dylan Cousins is a playoff guy.
I'm a Batherson guy. I like the way Jerry.
I also think another guy.
I think the ceiling's high, but the floor can be.
I think another guy that could really be underrated for them. He's a little bit smaller when it comes to height. Is Fabian Zetterlund. I think that could be really. That's like I think
and they're not asking him to play above what he has.
I think actually when he first came in, they were playing him fourth line, and because they were going so well in the top 9, they didn't want to mess with anything. But I think
you guys didn't mention yet, and Ryburn, you didn't mention either, but Thomas Chabot, I think that is huge. If they are to like advance through a round or two, he's going to have to be like pillar of strength for them. in at Montreal.
And I think Nick Cousins skated too prior to the Panther game. I think he's going to be coming back. So, Ryburn, you got to worry about him again.
I don't think they have Gudis to grab the stick this time.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about Nick Cousins. I'm a little worried about the other Cousins.
That's the guy in the first round that could be an agitator, you know? He's coming flying.
They got enough agitator with Brady Tkachuk, because if Brady showed what he could, like kind of like the preview of what he did at Four Nations, he may end up that series with about 25 PIMs. And
Ridley Greig's the other one that Ryburn mentioned, Cody.
Yeah, but like to me, like it's not the Shabbat and Sandersons I'm worried about. It's the Artem Zub and the Nick Jensen's more proven, but Artem Zub, that's going to be the guy that's going to be key for him.
I was just going to say Zub, like that's an underrated guy who probably doesn't get enough attention for what he does, right? Like does a little bit of everything for them.
No,
but you're a Zub guy then, Ryburn, because they're not asking him to do as much as they were 3 years ago.
No,
but he's just like he's a solid like number 4 defenseman. Like he fits that role perfectly. Like
they used to ask him to be number 2, you know. So,
yeah, but he's their top shutdown guy now. Where like, and that's where if
Sanderson's sneaky good defensively, Cody.
He's good.
And then Shabbat, he's starting to maturate finally.
There are defensemen where they're all around offensive, and then you have shutdowns. Sanderson's more in the all around category, but I don't care like what it is. Every team's going to have a top shutdown guy. Panthers, Gustav Forsing, Maple Leafs, Chris Tanev, Lightning, Ryan McDonough. Like each team has those guys. And
you can do it in different ways, though. Like, and I think Ottawa, if they can collectively do that as all-around guys and be around the puck and different things like that, and getting the help, Cody, that we talk often with our Panthers from the forwards coming back now. They weren't getting that before. Even like veterans like Giroux probably are digging in a little bit more now than they were last year. So again, I just think like collectively they're coming together as a team and how they're coached and different things like that. And Travis Green, I think if he gets up 1 or 2 games in a series, he's going to be very like, job's not done, task at hand here, and not get this team's not going to be overinflated, you know. And I think Brady being the captain too, Ryburn.
Yeah, well, they're going to play like they have something to prove because they do have something to prove, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not going to be easy out for anyone, and especially when you look at. I know that like it's probably sounds a little strange talking about something like this when you're the defending Stanley Cup champions, but like Toronto, Florida, and Tampa play down to their competition.
Oh,
and if that continues into the playoffs, then they could, Ottawa could bounce any of them if that doesn't stop.
And this goes into the team. If I were to choose the Panthers to go against the team I choose, I actually would choose Toronto.
I don't take offense to that. Don't worry.
No, I have really good explanation.
The division, right? Because we're not.
Yeah. If I have a really good explanation for it, because I don't want to play Ottawa and Montreal. Because their goal was just to make the playoffs. Anything beyond that's freaking house money. And my dad always told me this: the worst team to go against is the team with nothing to lose. And I don't want
Ottawa and Montreal in that.
They have nothing to lose.
No. Ottawa should have been here a year or 2 ago, but I think because they're here now with Montreal, which is looking like they have nothing to lose, and they're going to play out there. Like
Montreal is the one team that has really nothing to lose because they're ahead of schedule. Yeah. Like I compared them to the 16-17 Leafs, where they came in as a young, hungry wild card team and took Washington to the brink. Mm-hmm. Like I see those vibes in that Montreal team.
I think Montreal is the perfect opponent to play Washington. Because Washington, they've got heightened expectations now. And you got to look, all these young guys there, rookie head coach. There's not going to be big advantages for Washington to me when Montreal's coming in and they're playing hot. And Montreal could have the better first line than Washington. Cody often talks about who has the best player on the ice. Who are the best players? Right now, the way that Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, and Slafkovsky line's playing, it's not only one of the best lines in our division, it's one of the best lines in the NHL. Yeah. And then Toronto, I think that would situate Toronto better if they played Montreal, because that could get them going a bit, natural rivalry. Montreal hasn't been there before. Toronto's going to play up for those games, Ryburn. So I think Toronto will be more challenged by Ottawa, and Washington will be more challenged by Montreal. So I think the matchups are set up like that. And
one of the things, Kirby, I didn't want to just say, a lot of people forget about this, and I did too. It's like people talk about experience. Like Nick Suzuki
has the experience.
Cole Caulfield have been to a Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
They have playoff experience.
Lots of people forget that.
Right? So it's like
I know you haven't, Ryburn.
I sometimes do.
They're not like a bunch of strangers to playoff hockey. In fact, the first taste of the NHL Cole Caulfield really got
was in the
playoff hockey. And he played better. And then the following year, Dominic Ducharme, the problems there. But it's like they've had
against
success.
Paul Maurice and the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, it's just they don't have like the Shea Webbers and the Carey Price anymore. And the thing is, with Montreal is like the only inexperience that will happen is the coaching inexperience, which is Martin St. Louis. That could possibly be a big thing.
But Washington has the same thing, Cody.
I know.
What a turnaround for him. They were talking about earlier in the year.
They were talking about firing
him. And he saved his job with this late season run after that Four Nations break helped them so much.
What's funny?
And they didn't even have to get in. They just had to make that push.
And Kirby, this is a full circle moment too, because I remember when we were trying to make these damn predictions for the Atlantic Division.
Yeah.
And we did not want to put Montreal last.
And I hate Montreal, but we did not want to put them last because we're like something there. And then we thought that with Laine, and then Laine got that injury, remember, very early.
Yeah, and we would all four of us would have laughed at you if you said, "Hey, yo, Boston's going to finish last in the Atlantic Division."
Yeah, we were trying to put Detroit there. I probably won't say I was trying to put Buffalo there, but I was trying to put Buffalo a little lower than other people were. But we were trying to put Detroit there in place of Montreal. Yeah, look at where Detroit's now. They're always in neutral. But yeah, Montreal, again, I think Montreal would love to have a crack at Washington here. This whole thing with Washington, too, they're riding this Ovechkin wave. As of this recording today, Alexander Ovechkin has passed Wayne Gretzky for the all-time goal-scoring record. So congratulations to him and the Capitals. But now they have to shift their focus to the playoffs. And Montreal has been in this playoff focus mindset for a while now. And it's scary because we've got to see them guys a couple times here. And they've got the best of us all year long. And then you're seeing it out west with St. Louis. So again, when you're a hot team coming in, that matters. Isn't that how St. Louis knocked off Winnipeg when they won the Stanley Cup that year? Winnipeg was
was number one the whole year. And then the final 3, 4, 5 games of the year, they fell all the way to third. So they went from going to win the division to all of a sudden, I think they fell to second, actually, and they had to play St. Louis.
So we've seen this story before. I'm not saying Montreal is going to the Stanley Cup with the gauntlet. They have to go through in there in the Atlantic. But if they got to go through the Metro Division and you got Carolina, New Jersey in that other matchup, I would like to play New Jersey instead of Carolina.
If Carolina can beat Washington, which I think they can, they very well could head to the conference final.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's just
they got Montreal in the second round or something.
But the way I'm thinking is the Eastern Conference representative in the Stanley Cup final is most likely going to come from the Atlantic again.
But that's a harder path, Cody.
Yeah, because Washington they're just a really good team, but not really guys to like. If you need a goal, you need to get a goal. Same thing with Carolina. Like they tried the Mikko Rantanen thing, fell flat on their face, and they got Stankoven for it. Logan Stankoven was a great player, but he's really young, and then, like they lost Marty Necas, a freaking 90-point score in Colorado now, and Jack Drury. So it's not like they got like the same guys. Like they're still good. Seth Jarvis is probably still my favorite player over there.
Ryburn, where would you put the Washington Capitals and Carolina Hurricanes when it comes to the top teams in Atlantic here going into the playoffs? Like power rank them. Where do they sit for you?
That's a tough one. Washington's played well lately for sure, but I honestly think that that's going to just pop like a balloon now that Ovechkin has that record. I think there's going to be a huge drop in energy in that room, and I don't think that's a good thing heading into the playoffs. I think they do play in the easier Eastern Conference division, so I don't know. I would put them between 3 and 5, somewhere in there, right? I think they're probably better than Ottawa and Montreal are. Do I think that they're better than the top 3, Toronto, Florida, Tampa? Not really. Not sold on that. So I think one of the you're right when you say that the Atlantic is the tougher path to the conference final and ultimately the Stanley Cup final. And even these bottom tier teams like Ottawa, Montreal, I can see Ottawa being a problem for any team, but even if one of our teams was to play Montreal, I think Montreal is a team that could take a lot out of you. Like, I think they would probably still lose the series, but like when you look at some of the players that are going to be playing in a playoff series for Montreal, like the David Savards and Josh Anderson, and they've got those two, like they got Jack Guy and Pizzetta who love to just like pound flesh, right? Like, so I could see Montreal being a team that does a bit of damage when it comes to a team's prospective run, even if they don't win the series. Like, I could see them taking physically a lot out of a team. So
yeah, I'm just happy for the first time. It's like this year, unlike last year, going into the playoffs, every first round matchup is going to be watchable.
Totally.
Like, I don't think there's going to be a bad one in the NHL like this year, because I feel like every team that's a playoff team this year has been a really good team. Like St. Louis has been the hottest team in the league they've won 12 straight now.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's not like the Islanders and Capitals last year where both of those teams were freaking horrible and they got in because all the bottom tier Atlantic Division teams wanted just completely crap the bed making the playoffs again, because Detroit was in it and then they fell off a cliff. Same thing they did this year.
And again, at the favorites advance, Cody, you got a matchup like Washington and Carolina. I think Carolina is the team that we have talked about the least here, but I think there's a path there for them to get to the Eastern Conference Final if Montreal gets into the playoffs and upsets Washington, or Washington overcomes Montreal, but Montreal does what you said, Ryburn. I think Carolina's in a good position there. The thing with Carolina is the whole Rantanen thing and not having the best player on the ice that Cody often talks about. But there could be a path there out there in the Metro because it's not a gauntlet like the Atlantic.
And I'm going to throw a caveat to the third Metro team, New Jersey. They have the best goalie in that division, in Jacob Barkstrom.
Yes, I'm with you.
So he could goalie their way to a conference final.
So like an Ottinger type thing?
No, because Andre lost in the first round.
That might have to be more like Carey Price with that lineup right now.
You may have you may have to go JS Gear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now Jack Hughes was there. I'm like, and I'm not a huge fan of Jack Hughes, but
he's out.
He's out, so it doesn't matter. Kirby, they might be even better in Kirby's mind without Siegenthaler and Hamilton.
Yeah, right. But they don't split them up this year because I told you guys.
Siegenthaler was having a hell of a year, but hey, let's see what Luke Hughes has got. He's got all the free grand in the world. What are they going to do? Bench him? They can't.
He can play free.
And they kind of got like house money there in New Jersey. It's like everybody's out. Like, what do we got to lose, right?
And wrapping up here, because I think we've covered pretty much everything we wanted to cover.
Yeah, pretty much everything. Are we going to make any predictions or too early?
I have it too early because we don't even know. I'm not going to say Montreal's going to definitively make the playoffs the way that wild card race has been. I'm not doing it yet until there's an X by their name.
Oh, you better yell that to Caesar there because Caesar keeps saying, "Oh, he's got Montreal." Caesar, me and Cody were confident in like New York Rangers holding in there, but we weren't saying they are absolutely going to win the spot. When you ask us on the spot, and I said Ottawa, so I want credit for that because they a heater to cut.
But Ryburn, I do have a trivia question for you right here.
Let's hear it.
I asked something similar to this last night on After Dark.
That lasted about 10 minutes last night, Cody.
Yeah, because you guys couldn't think of Cristobal Huet. But Steve Dangle did something similar to this, but I'm going to do something different. Could you name me the top 3 goal scorers against the Toronto Maple Leafs all time?
Top 3 against all time?
Yes. I'm going to give you hints. These are all 3 old schoolers.
Rocket Richard.
He's 2.
Is he on the right team there? The right team?
No. Actually, Guy Lafleur is not even in the top 10. But like Guy Lafleur, where is he? That's a
Espo.
No.
Yes.
Like these guys are like, all right. One is Detroit. One is Chicago mainly.
Gordie Howe.
Gordie Howe's 1.
And one was Chicago mainly?
Yes.
2 guys there, you can guess.
Stan Mikita?
Other guy.
I would have said Mikita too. Yeah, the other guy, Ryburn. Bobby Hull.
Oh, yeah, duh.
But I would have went Mikita.
Yeah. And now we're going to flip to Kirby and Nick. Give me it for the Panthers.
Goal scorers? Alexander Ovechkin. Steven Stamkos.
All right, that is, I believe that's 1 and 2. Yes, that's 1 and 2. Now you just did 3.
Can we say the Thrasher guys, Kovalchuk or Hossa?
They're 4 and 5.
Oh,
Tavares.
No,
that would have been a good segue there. Good tie-in.
Tavares is 13.
Yeah, we haven't. I'm trying to think Atlantic Division.
Why are you saying it? Because Ryburn's here, the Swedish King Mats Sundin? I don't think.
I don't even think he's even close to.
Are we talking about a guy that's like?
Are we talking the Carolina Divers, Eric Stahl?
No, Eric Stahl 17.
Is it some like it's not a star player?
No, it's a star player.
Is it Crosby?
No, it's not Crosby. Crosby's 8.
Are we talking old school Penguins here?
It could be.
Yager Lemieux?
Yager's 3.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's surprisingly.
I have another trivia question. Who was the goalie Alex Ovechkin scored his 895th goal on?
Ilya Sorokin.
There we go. That's going to be a trivia question that's going to age well.
You know,
here's a trivia question, and Cody wasn't watching this. Who pulled the puck out of the net? Was it a player, a goalie, a referee, a linesman, an official?
Had to be referee.
Nope.
Was it a player then?
It was a linesman. Everyone left the net, and Sorokin just stood there, and the linesman went in the net and took the puck.
If I was Sorokin, I would have taken that puck out of my net and then
thrown it into the freaking crowd.
Or put it in your goalie pants there.
I can't find it.
I don't know. I lost it.
I lost it.
Like looking at this list for the Panthers, it's actually kind of crazy because Peter Bondra is actually 7.
Oh,
he never would have guessed that in a million years.
Yeah. Panther killer before like the Eric Stalls and
Alfredson's 9.
I wouldn't have guessed Alfredson.
What about a guy like Kovalev? Alex Kovalev, is he on there?
Ooh, with Montreal.
He's 30.
Okay.
So
pretty far down.
There's got to be Boston guys on there like Lucic and stuff like that.
No, they're not even close to on here.
Really? Because that's why we didn't hate Brad Marchand, because he wasn't like a Panther killer. It's just the Bruins killed us across the board.
Bergeron was the killer. He's 12.
Yeah, but I never pictured him like that. He probably did it so systematically.
Like, I'll just read off the top 10 for your audio listeners. Alex Ovechkin 1, Steven Stamkos 3, Jaromir Jagr 3, Kovalchuk 4, Marian Hossa 5, Martin St. Louis 6, Peter Bondra is 7, Sidney Crosby is 8, Daniel Alfredson is 9, and Rod the Bod Brindamore is 10.
Wow. Where is
LeCavalier?
11.
Those guys killed us, and they weren't even like what Tampa Bay is now.
So
He's 1 year up, 1 year down. But
there are 2 surprising names in the top 20.
Well, I'll say this: I do have one, Patrick Elias for New Jersey.
15. He's 15.
Okay, I remember he
That's
used
a
the
good guess.
freaking.
The 2 guys that are surprising me are Thomas Vanek. He's 16. He's above Eric Stahl.
He had a couple of really good years in Buffalo, I remember.
Yeah. And then another Buffalo guy, I'm pretty sure, Brian Giunta, 18.
The Devils and.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Miroslav Japan.
Devils, Buffalo, and Montreal, actually, Giunta.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. People like to talk about Panther killers and, like hold on, let me look up this.
We usually remember them there.
Remember Thomas Vanek always used to get, like...
he just said that.
He's a random Panther, too. Remember, he was a Panther after a trade deadline.
I remember Eric Cole, Alexander Semin... Gosh, I hated
Not that our ownership or management was that great back then.
I always remember Washington, even after Semin left. I hated Washington so much.
I hated Atlanta.
Oh my gosh. Atlanta, too. We could never...
We just sucked, man. Everyone killed us.
It didn't even matter.
Those were depressing.
You might have a throwback to the game against Detroit. There's been some lineup changes we'll talk about off air. So,
But
we have to get off air here to watch the Panthers play Detroit as of this recording. Then you guys can always join us on Twitter X Spaces post game. Down the stretch here, I know some fans. You guys are like, just skip ahead, fast forward to the playoffs here. But
enjoy it.
We're here to talk now about Panthers. When the playoffs come, it's going to be a full house, and everyone wants to get in there, and they're going to be like to me. Cody and Nick, come on, give me a mic. Let's talk. Now's the time to come and talk. So join us over on the Twitter X platform.
Yeah, because we get loaded for playoffs.
Yeah, can't get everyone in and have 20 voices at once,
Yeah, and 20 great voices, probably about 13 horrible takes.
But we appreciate having people like Ryburn drop by and fans that are not Panther fans because they educate us with teams within the division around the league. And I really appreciate that. Some of you that don't, well, too bad. That's what we do here. So really appreciate Ryburn's takes. And Ryburn sits down and watches Panther games as well. So appreciate hearing.
Ryburn's a hockey nerd just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
That's right. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been fun. It's always fun. So
sounds good. Where can everyone follow you? Anything like that?
No, I don't care about any of that stuff. You can type in Ryburn on Twitter and I'll probably show up. But
That's a Ryburn quote right there.
Clip that.
But appreciate you guys listening once again. Drop a like and subscribe for my co-host here, Kirby and Nick. As always, let's go Cats.
What's up, Cats and Rats fans? If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button before you head out. If you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. And just like always, let's go Cats.